Welcome to the CEO Bros Podcast, After Hours, with Brian Baldoff, co-founded, grew, and sold VHT Studios. Brad Baldoff, CEO and co-founder of By Your Side Autism Therapy Services. Matt Croak, the consummate entertainer, jack of all trades, and serves as our host.
Guys, wild turkey, not the drink, wild turkey right there on the lawn. Right there on the lawn. Walking through
For
the
those
front yard.
listening, you can't see it on video either. It's out. We're looking at it. You can't see it.
But Matt, will you do the honors? Because
Yes.
speaking of wild turkeys,
Yeah.
one just retired, and he's sitting over here that way.
Wow.
No, it'd be
Wild
Brian.
Turkey Brian. Brian the Wild. First of all, congratulations.
That's another new nickname. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Brian retired.
And I found out, I didn't know, I found out because I was at your band at a gig, and they gifted you something in the middle of the set, and I went, oh my gosh, he's retired.
Yeah, I actually brought a whiff to show everybody, actually to thank everybody. This was from a lot of the original members of VHT. We started the company, I don't know, 27 years ago.
Look at that.
And we had a ton of musicians actually working for the company. Guitar players, saxophonists, drummers, bassists, everything.
You are holding it upside down, though. Oh, no, you're not.
No, I'm not.
Because I was wondering
Leave it
why
to a drummer to say that. It looks upside down on the camera.
Oh,
okay.
You know why? Because I've never seen the what do you call it on top, the plugger, the
That's the toggle?
the toggle. I've never seen it up top. I've always
Oh.
seen it down below.
So Brian,
That's
for
true.
our audio only listeners, describe it. I don't know much about guitar.
Well, it's a Les Paul style. It's actually a Harley Benton, but the cool thing is that everybody signed it. So
it's a black guitar, signed it in gold lettering, so it looks really sharp.
Yeah, it looks cool. And there was people from, like I said, we started 27 years ago. So some people showed up and signed this that hadn't been with the company in 10, 15 years. Everybody shared stories. It was kind of a great send off. I had told everybody I wanted to do the Homer Simpson and just fade into the bushes and go quietly, and they would have none of it. Carlos and Vince said, no, we're not doing that. So the people like Mike Brown and Rachel and John Bosch and LaDonna and everybody who had been with us in the beginning, Kelly and Liz and Pat, and really appreciate everything. And it's not really a retirement so much as a reset.
Sure. Yeah.
Oh, I like
for
that.
me. I think like doing this podcast is something I probably wouldn't have been able to do if I was still working full time. And
It would be great if
see
you
what it
actually
brings.
knew how to play that.
Yeah, what, you got a
I do know how
little
to play
Killers
it.
or AC/DC or something on there?
Yeah, I don't have it plugged in. I should.
That's
have
okay.
brought
We
my
can hear it right
maybe
here.
next
Just go
time.
ahead. We'll be quiet.
We went to see AC/DC a couple of weeks ago. So a
AC/DC
little
at Soldier
riff-raff.
Field. Okay, see, we have a little riff-raff by AC/DC.
Do I even have to ask how that show was? Amazing.
That show is incredible.
Yeah, I mean-
and speaking of our good friends in Australia, one of the byproducts of Australia, AC/DC.
It was the day after
The Young brothers were born in Melbourne.
Really?
And then moved over to Europe, Scotland, and I think Bond's where they met. They met Bond in Australia or out in Scotland, but
They met him in Australia. I don't think he was from there, but we
They
went
met
to see
Brian
him the
Johnson
day
in Scotland.
after the podcast where Brad did his top 10 facts on Australia. So
and we wanted to mention that the Young brothers from AC/DC, our favorite band,
Yep.
the number one export of Australia.
it was
least in my eyes.
AC/DC. Yeah. So congratulations on the
Congratulations.
and
Thank you,
kudos
guys.
to all
Yes.
those good folks out there.
Yeah,
that,
thanks to everybody along the way. It was quite a journey.
You mentioned
A lot
that
of fun.
now it's a reset, and it probably allows you more time for the podcast. Is this a good time to check in on the podcast? On how
Well, I think you mentioned, Matt, back in like episode 1 or 2. You said, well, like what's the whole deal with the podcast?
Yeah.
And then we gave a really quick explanation. We're like, oh yeah, well, Brian and I banter every week or two on things that are all things business. And I think that was the extent of what we said about the podcast. And And then actually feedback started to come in. We started to get some questions and had some emails, and people were saying, well, what is really what are you guys going to do with the podcast? Like, how do you guys plan on growing it? You developing it? Is it a business? Can you give us the whole?
I get the same questions a lot.
Do you really?
Yeah. Hey, it would be cool to hear you guys talk about the business side of the podcast. And, we talk about business plans and goals and strategies and marketing and all that for businesses. Like, well, this is a business.
And you are CEOs. I mean, that's the idea, right? So you are CEOs.
Well, I'm the CEO of this business.
Right.
I remember what I said.
Spotted cow on that.
I think that's
Get your guitar back out and play. Guitar, please.
You will play along.
Oh, bro.
How do you like that?
Bros. I know Amber doesn't like that in the mic, but so
it would be great to pull back the curtain, because
I was telling Brad, like a quarterly review, like you do at a real business.
Oh,
we're actually going to do your review right now.
right.
And
Surprise!
And
we actually hired an HR department, so we now have an HR department.
You see Amber's reaction to this back there. So we have to talk through the cast of characters that are all involved. Maybe that's where we start.
Okay.
Pull back the curtain behind the scenes. What's going on? So
It's a growing medium. It's very relevant.
yeah,
Well, you had experience in it. First of all, you had been doing
He turned me on to
audio-only
podcasts.
podcasts.
I love the
for a long time.
audio content. I love just the audio format. I think I think it's better to get content out. I love being specific. I think anyone who tells you their podcast is for everyone, it's for no one. Having a topic.
Oh,
and going,
right. I've heard that several
Right,
times,
going
so.
after. So I do an autism podcast for
follow that one. I got it.
yeah. You try
For everyone, it's for no
to
one.
try to give content to everyone. You're really giving it to no one. But here, CEO Bros, great example. Entrepreneurs, seasoned veterans, people running a business, people who are managers, people who are looking to run a staff. All of that is relevant to what we talk about. That's great. I do an autism podcast for the By Your Side. I interview therapists, authors, parents, anything about, having an autistic child and being in that community. So I've always loved this medium. So I've been a fan for it since it first started, listening to a show called Podcast 411, which any deep dive, he was actually at the convention. I met him.
Oh,
so I kind of met one of my heroes, like from early. I went up to him, I've been listening to you for over 15 years. And he's like, oh my gosh. So we kind of talked a
It
little
goes
bit.
back to when you used to download
He's like,
them.
security, please grab this guy.
When you used to download the file on your iPod.
Yeah,
I think that's where the name came from. I think everybody just streams it now. But
So yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I think we got to talk about, so what we will talk about, I should say, today, maybe across a couple podcasts. And then to Brian's point, I think what we're going to attempt to do is, we'll make this the evolution of a podcast. So the evolution of a business will update people as to what we're doing with the podcast as a business. There's people out there that want to start podcasts, but we'll tell you, like, here are the challenges, here are the opportunities, here's what you need to do, here's what's frustrating us, here's what actually was exciting, what's all that was involved. And then along the way, as Brian mentioned, you do kind of quarterly updates or reviews. When you start a new business, you do those reviews even more expeditious, more frequently than maybe after a business is more mature, because you're like, hey, are we going on the right path? Are we getting derailed here?
we doing what we said we wanted to do? Has anything changed? Are we, hitting objectives? Did we even set objectives?
Spoiler, we'll get to it later. Consistency so far, big check mark in the plus column for that. We'll talk about that later.
We haven't missed a Friday yet.
How consistent we have been.
two of us
we'll
haven't,
talk about
but-
that. Kudos on that.
Yeah, I mean, we've been regularly here, and out of 10 episodes, you've made 60%.
I just missed that I'm being thrown under the. It took me a second as I'm smiling and laughing, going, "Wait a minute."
But let's go
talking
back.
about?
Let's go back to the beginning.
Well,
and
this
talk
will be
about-
good for us too, because I think, I don't know how much people think time we get to spend on the business off camera, but it's not a ton other than emails and texts crossing in the wind. So even just having
Maybe
this
not for
discussion is
you,
good.
but for Amber and I, it's pretty actually. It takes a lot of
3
time.
hours before I am.
Yeah, no. So I think we should talk through though. All right, so let's start. We'll go through stage by stage with this, and this could go over a couple podcasts. But hopefully you guys find this informative and interesting and all that stuff. First off was, the concept was like, all right, we talked about why we're gonna have a podcast because we think we have some good content through the years, informative, good experience that we could that we can share with those that are aspiring entrepreneurs, people that want to start a business, people that maybe manage a department, manage a company, and they just want to pick up little tricks of the trade, tips here and there. So Brian and I would have these conversations on a weekly basis over a course of a couple of months.
Oh, I think
over drinks. Over drinks.
Yeah.
And we talked about, well, let's kind of catalog this stuff, because there's a lot of good info in here that we probably should start sharing.
Do I remember, were you on board first? Because I remember you saying, I think Brian is willing to do one. So I think you were first in saying, I think this is a direction I want to go in. Is that correct?
Yeah, because from my standpoint, Brian and I were having kind of regular conversations about business, and it was just getting funny because some of the stories were really out there. I mean, stories that you would barrel over laughing, or you'd be like, oh my God, I can't believe that happened.
Can't believe that's happening. Yeah.
And then we'd have more and more stories, and then we'd be like, oh, I didn't know you did that. Oh, I did this. And oh, this really
when
helped.
other people would hear them, they'd be like, well, you gotta
share that.
You gotta go deeper on that. You gotta share that, or tell so-and-so that story. Cause it's like, oh, all right.
Well, we figure this is a great way to catalog it and share. I mean, and let's have fun along the way. Let's make it after hours. Let's have drinks. And then tell some of these stories and share some experiences. So
let's not blow past that. That was a choice. Drinks, casual, after hours. Let's do this after a long week on a Friday night. Let's make it three of us together. That was a choice of saying that's the tone we want to do, probably because you guys have a repertoire because of your brothers. So we knew it could be conversational from the beginning.
Well, also we're working a lot during the day, and it was kind of relief. A pound of drink.
Don't want this to feel like a job where we come and have the same types of conversations you're having all day long.
So conceptually, they'll get to it. So it's like, all right, well, Brian and I could talk. We got a lot of content. So it's like, all right, but how does this going to sound? What's this going to look like? What are we going to do? So we had to talk through like, all right, who else should be involved? And so I'll give the little backstory on Matt. I want to hear about why you're doing it. You're like, I don't know. And then Amber, who's behind the scenes that you have not seen, but Amber will show her face and she will speak up at some point here. And
even though we know it's not her most comfort zone, right? But she's gonna share with us.
But
I'm working on it.
So first and foremost, it was, well, Brian and I could just sit there and talk about topics, but I've had obviously a longstanding good friend in Matt Croak. He a comedic actor, entertainer, traveled around the world, tells the best stories in the world, extremely funny. And we got to keep this light though in the process, because a lot of this stuff, some of this stuff gets really serious. And people want to hear serious stuff, but they also want to hear like the zany, crazy, funny stuff that happened along the way too. And so I asked Brian, I said, hey, how do you feel about Matt joining us as the host? We obviously are CEO bros, but I said, we need to add another element to this, which is Matt should be involved, and Matt should be keeping the content flowing and keep it light and ask the questions, because you and I, Brian, are just not going to get it done.
No. When you pitch the conversation, it could go anywhere.
And when you pitched it to me, I immediately thought of an umpire. I thought, that'd be great if I could be involved, but if you don't know I'm there, I'm doing my job. To the point of, there was a conversation.
Is that what you were actually thinking, though? Honest to God.
Yeah, because I even said it to you. I said I would be like an umpire, where I'm there making sure things are happening.
Black.
I could wear all black.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, on Sundays, light blue shirt.
Yep, right.
Deep dive for those baseball fans.
I didn't even know that.
To the point of, there was a conversation, should I be in the logo? And I even said, no, I'm not a CEO.
I'm not in the logo. He's hidden somewhere.
If you look behind the E, if you look behind the E, there's another.
Snuck him in there.
Yeah, I'm the spirit. And but that was bantered around, that idea. And I said, no, I shouldn't be on the logo because I'm not a CEO. So I love the idea of having the best seat in the house, but I did view it as a facilitator to see, you know, to keep the conversation going. So that when pitched to me, I thought, oh, I could do, I would love to, that sounds great. You know, I love the medium, you know. And
I think it's worked. Listen, I gotta tell you, you know, now that we're 18, 20 episodes, I know you guys picked on me last time for talking about what episode we're on.
No, it's only because you said, we're not going to say a number. And then you said a number. That was the only joke on that.
Somewhere between 18 and 20. It's like, okay, we didn't say a number.
No, but look at Brian and I did 2 episodes where we were sitting next to each other, and it was extremely awkward. We're brothers. You would think that it would be so easy to talk to each other, and it was awkward. It was very awkward. When we talk on the phone or we talk email or text, whatever, it's not like that. But when you're sitting next to each other in a chair, and you're like, okay, it's different. So you do create that.
Well, it's good to have. It's good to free you both up to not try to also be and you just tell the stories and then have somebody run it. And this puts me in a tough position because AREX, I have to compliment them. I knew the storytelling capabilities that you both had, and I knew the knowledge, and I thought this would be great because you guys both are hysterical. You tell great stories, and I'm like, I can be the conduit to keep you talking, and I'll just try to keep traffic moving and allow you to just, you know, be yourself. So honestly, from the minute it was pitched, I was a fan. I was like, this would be great. So I was kind of in from sentence one. So that works on. Now we have so we have 3 2 telling content. We have the 1 moderator, MC, host with the literally
most.
MC Matt Croak, literally.
Exactly.
You also have to pay
Although
attention.
MC is EMMC.
And
you
then
pay attention the entire time.
Then along comes AREX, and then AREX came into the play, which was very fortunate that we were able to meet Amber, and Amber was close friends with my daughter, and she mentioned that she was a sound engineering major in college, and then the friend group was talking about a podcast, and she's like, "Oh my God, that would be right up my alley. I would love to do that." And I go, "Well, it's going to be everything and anything production, video, editing, sound, you know, everything from A to Z as far as production, editing, and post production." She's like, "I would love to do that." So Amber, I mean, so far, without putting you on the spot, have you still enjoyed doing this? Is it something that you thought it would be like this or different?
Yeah, no, and it's really cool and awesome watching it come to life. Everything that we've put out there, we've established and accomplished so far. And it's funny how it all worked out, how things work out, because after school, I've moved back here to Chicago and started off as an intern at a recording studio, and that's a whole other story for another time.
Podcast episode that.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I was only there for like 2 months and quit, and was kind of like unsure where I was going with my career path and my choice. And I think that the best jobs are the ones that you end up getting through word of mouth. And so that all happened over
by circumstance. It just happened.
Right. Yeah, over a Friendsgiving.
Yeah, it was a Friendsgiving. That's right. And then it went from, and then what a lot of people can't see, but we'll have to turn the cameras on. It's like, so we are sitting up in a condo. We call it Studio G up in Fontana, Wisconsin. So to our good friends at New Glarus Brewing, we'd like to thank those.
By the way, this was not planned. I sometimes do something else. We all happen to grab a Spotted Cow. That's not planned.
The favorite beer.
We literally all grabbed a Spotted Cow.
Of those living in Wisconsin.
Full of them.
Yeah,
full of them.
There's that too.
But one of the things that we asked Amber right out of the gate was, you know, hey, so we think we need this and that's this type of equipment. And Amber just went right to work and just started doing all of this research and everything that she thought we needed, and we threw comments and feedback back and like, we think we need these cameras, these lights, these stands, this software, blah, 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 blah. And she just rapid fired through everything. And I wish everybody could see this studio because
we can.
It is we can. We'll turn the.
We'll show a picture.
We'll show a picture of what the studio looks like.
Just to go back quickly, the 3 of us were at dinner when we did this, and we talked seriously, like we could do this. I had some experience where like we can do the production.
Right.
And then it became pretty apparent pretty quickly we couldn't. And I raised my hand saying, this is a little out of my league, the technical stuff. And so Amber is a huge addition to this project, because that's when you were able to to secure Amber because we realized we could not do the production ourselves.
Yeah. Well, first of all,
the picture right now, so I don't forget.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. That's great. Well, there's no way that you could focus on the content and the delivery of the content and creating the content if there wasn't somebody like Amber that is running everything behind the scenes and makes everything happen and, the production come to life. So for those that are out there, it's like, okay, it's a 4-person team. We all work closely together on coming up with each Friday, putting out new material and new episodes. So that's the team, right? And, and then it came for Brian and I, we were talking about like, all right, well, what kind of money do we need, obviously, to get this going? And so I think one of the things that we want to talk about is we want to do, for those that are out there, we want to do an update literally every 2 months, every 3 months, and just give an update. How is this podcast progressing as a business? Not just a podcast, oh, we're getting this or that, but like, how do you guys evaluate it? Are you happy with the progress of the podcast? Is it doing what you thought it would? And so we should probably talk about
it asks a lot about the business plan, the goals, the strategies, how we're marketing it, and where it goes in the future. And now I can say, watch this episode.
It's funny because a lot of what we're going to talk about is a lot of what you already talked about, which is nice to connect them. Like I think going back to Amber, I think of Amber as like the property manager. We talk about real estate. You say trust somebody, you need that person. And then Brad, you pushed, I'll give you credit, you pushed hard for getting that first episode out, kind of like you talked about getting that customer and getting that first product customer out there. And I was even like, well, maybe we should wait. Let's build up a bit of a library. And Brad's like, no, let's go. Let's get this thing out and then we'll build it as it goes. And that turned out to be a great call by you. So a lot of things you have already talked about are being put into play with this business.
Yeah. So let's talk about then. All right. Well, then, so what do we want to accomplish? What's the objective? Okay. Well, first let's take a step back. What do we need to set up? Well, as we'll show you a picture of the studio and everything we needed, there was startup costs, right? And so for those of you, we've talked about startup costs and funding those startup costs. All of our equipment, we bought new cameras, we bought tripods and mic stands, we bought microphones, we got headphones, we got monitors, we have lighting, we have software, we have everything you would think about.
A lot of subscriptions.
A lot of subscriptions, right? To ensure that we don't do a half-assed
software
job.
Subscriptions, not people subscribing to the podcast.
Right.
Well, we do have a lot of subscribers.
No, but meaning you're talking about subscriptions.
To services, online services that help us do our work.
But we wanted to. It was important that we didn't do a half-assed job in delivery of any new product or service. So even if we were rookie podcasters, I told Amber, I remember first day, and I told Brian first day, I said, I don't care what it costs to get the right equipment, but let's make sure that whatever we put out there is good. Whether one person listens to it or 1 million people listen to it, let's just put out a good product. And the only way that happens is if you get good quality equipment, good quality cameras, good lighting, good microphones. So of course, Amber did all that research. We purchased all the equipment. That's your startup costs, right?
We did make, well, I'll mention it because people have seen it, a significant upgrade on 2 of the cameras since the beginning.
It's a good point.
Just because we weren't happy with it and, spent probably 5 times as much on the newer cameras than we did.
Right. And then we had one camera where Brad was very clear. Then you were a little pixelated and it did, after a while, became noticeable.
Well, we were kind of testing.
I said, Brian, what kind of lotion are you using on your skin? And he said, no, I don't have a lotion problem. And I said, you do.
Brad, because we figured if it could make him look better, then it could make me look better. And then we got the second one.
That's how it worked. Yes. No, it's a good point,
I mean, we still have faces for radio, but I mean, at least now they look
I think
better.
That's a good line. We have faces for radio. What does that mean? No. But I think what Brian brings up is a good point is though that, so we'll talk to everybody here about the trial and error, the trials and error we go through with everything. This whole podcast as a business is in a giant incubator stage. And so we'll talk about that, like what the objective is. And then, okay, but as things go, Is it going the way you thought it would? Or do you got to do things differently? Or do you want to try different things? And so I think the reality is that, so as Brian mentioned, we already found out certain cameras weren't working well. They just weren't getting kind of the quality of the picture we wanted.
We were having problems with the lighting and the close-ups and things like that. So
yeah.
Well, are we talking early stage still kind of hiccups or?
Yeah, I just think our point is though, there's, and if you've got any, like we're just sharing with people that it's not like we just started recording and now we've been recording for 20 straight weeks. It's like, no, every week there's something that's not working right, or it could be adjusted or made better.
Well, I think we need to say this. I think the first 2 recording sessions, we lost 3 or 4 episodes. We had to completely re-record.
I totally forgot
We
about that.
recorded those, and they were.
Well, then there was the period where Amber went on strike for 3 weeks, and then we're like, "What are we going to do during that?"
There was
trying to cross that.
There were some learning curves
crazy.
where the equipment wasn't working the way we thought it was going to.
Right.
And we got home and it was like, nope, no good. We can't use them. We got to come back and re-record.
Amber, you remember those days when
I
we
remember those
we
days.
thought we
the good old
recorded
days.
2 or 3 episodes and they weren't recorded.
The rookie days.
Yeah, the rookie days.
The rookie
Very
days.
nice.
Yeah, that's
Well, I
but-
feel like we're still in the product development phase of this business.
Well, what
Like,
was nice about that, looking back, once we got past
We got
it,
to drink during the whole
we got
process.
to drink through the whole process.
Well, there's that.
And because it's more of a lighthearted, we did build some rapport that by the time we actually were able to use one of the episodes, we had it down a little bit. They're like dress rehearsals almost.
Right,
Without
yeah,
meaning to
put
be
it in
dress
the-
rehearsals. So, it was hard to capture some of the jokes we had before, but we just made new ones.
I've been asked by several people, it's like, do you have scripts written somewhere that you guys are covering the topics? And ironically, we have literally a sheet that has like 4 or
we have
5
some handwritten notes that I can't read.
some bullet
Right.
points up here, and we say, okay, we got to talk about that. And so we want everybody to know that a lot of this stuff is, we're just going from memory, our experience, what's worked, what hasn't worked. And we give some things to steer our agenda, but
Well, yeah, you and I have conversations about topics, but it's usually like we always did. And it's like, all right, let's take this to the podcast. And
But again, a choice. Yeah, how many conversations were happening upstairs? And I'm like stopping you both saying, save it for the
Save
podcast.
it.
Yeah, you know,
Let's
the
put
old
this
cliche,
on.
save it for the podcast. Don't leave the good stuff on the unfilmed.
well, and we're going to start doing we talked about it today, some point counterpoints. 'Cause there's a lot of things we don't agree on. We haven't really gotten into that.
yeah, you see a lot of
Dynamic,
brotly love over the first
Right,
20
yeah.
episodes. You'll
This
see
has
the
been
other
the
side of
honeymoon
it.
stage.
But
Yeah.
again, that's a choice. We talked about it. We didn't want to force, we don't disagree, but you generally both have different ways of looking at it. So we're going to find that sweet spot of not forcing disagreement, but actually talking about things where you don't see eye to eye.
Yeah, so let's talk just logistics a little bit more. So we talked startup costs. So operating expenses, one of the reasons I want to bring this up is because we should talk about how one advantage we have, Brian and I have, can't speak the same for Matt or Amber, but I want to tell you how I view it, which is for Brian and I, time is on our side. So as we're working on this podcast, if I was starting another business or Brian was starting another business, there would be probably a more urgent shelf life on that this product or service has to be delivered, and we have to be generating X revenue, delivering Y profit by Z time frame, or we're shutting it down. And quite frankly, that's not how I viewed this going into this. I looked
We've got
at
the luxury of.
we have the luxury of Brian's retired. We do the filming after hours. So for those of us that are working now, that we can do it. One thing that was important to me is that besides Brian and I having equity in the business, Matt will have equity in the business. Amber will have equity in the business, so that if it does grow, it is successful. All 4 of us will benefit from it. The other thing that we realize is that not everybody has the luxury of that time. So like having Amber working on the podcast is great, but she needs to make a living. She needs to pay her bills. Matt will need to be paying his bills and needs to be taking care of his expenses as well. So the way we view it is, hey, if if and when the revenue starts driving for the podcast, the first two people I take care of, or I would vie for, is Amber and Matt. And then we take care of ourselves after that. That's how, in my mind, you grow a business if you're trying to get one off the ground. Because I remember, Brian, I don't know how long you went, but when I started by your
Too
side,
long.
I didn't pay myself for 3 years.
Yeah, it's about the same. About the same.
about
You
two
and I
and a-
talked about that. I mean, that's a separate topic, but if you're doing that, keep track. Because if you ever take outside money and want to keep that on the books, that you deferred your salary.
I
for
learned
3
that
years.
from you. You told me that after the fact. I remember I was not paying myself for the longest time, and you're like, you might want to be accruing for that, because when you do get money back, and you're gonna want to go back and look at what you should have been paid. And so, point being though is we're not blind to the fact that there are people in this team that need to be paid. So we take care of those individuals, pay them as they need to be paid, and we go until we can start driving revenue to the podcast. And that's part of the equation. And that comes into play, because for those of you that are out there that want to start a business, if you have no revenue coming in, you better have a slush fund set up to pay yourself or pay your employees or to get it off the ground. You can't just assume people are going to work for free for a long period of time. They won't stay.
Because even the IRS at some point considers it a hobby, not a business.
Really?
If you're not making money? Yeah. I think it's like 5 years.
And what does that change? Everything?
Yeah.
Does that complicate things if the
I
IRS
don't-
thinks of you as a hobby?
Well, if you're just losing money for 5 years and they go, hey, this isn't really a business, you can't take losses anymore.
Oh,
They're going to say,
losses
sorry,
next
those
year.
aren't business
that's
losses.
the answer, yeah.
Those are
Yeah.
gambling expenses or whatever, drinking expense. Like, yeah, I mean, imagine if we were expensing all the booze we drink.
Yeah.
Eventually,
They're going to,
if we're not making a profit, somebody's going to say something.
So you talk about it, say,
tip.
okay, well, so what do you want to accomplish? Okay, well, ultimately, we'd like to be able to monetize the podcast, right? I mean, that would be, or people ask us that, do you want to monetize the podcast? And you say, well, yeah. So
That's kind of in the definition of business. You want to make money. So.
Which helped you with your startup costs because you knew that there would be some costs, but that's okay because in the end, you did have a plan to monetize.
right, and it comes down to okay, like some of the questions that come out is, are you doing it literally to make revenue from the podcast? Are you trying to make the podcast profitable? Are you using the podcast as a means to an end? Mm-hmm. Are you trying to get the podcast to create a groundswell of interest and subscribers and views to sell some product you guys have? And the point is that it's all still in incubation. We're still growing the viewership. We're still growing the subscriber base, and we'll be doing it for a long time. And when I said that we have the luxury of time on our side, we're not pressed against if we don't turn on so many subscribers or viewers by X time, we run out of money. We don't have that issue. And so we can carry on for as long as we just say, all right, we don't want to do this anymore. But I think in Brian and I's discussions around, it's like, all right, well, let's evaluate this every 3-4 months and see kind of where we're going with it. Are we accomplishing what we want to accomplish? And is it going in the direction we want to? I mean,
yeah, I view it as, I mentioned earlier, we're still developing the product. But at the same time, and we'll talk about this, we're also testing some of the other components of the business. So what's our marketing strategy? What's our product strategy? We're starting to do interviews now, and we're talking about what type of guests we'd like to have, what we'd like them to talk about.
You also have already been on a podcast as being interviewed, which could help, drive interest.
So that goes back to, so, all right, guys, well, all right, so you got cool content, or you think you do. You got unique content. So how do you get views, right? For those of you out there, how do you get views? How do you get subscribers? Okay. And the way we view it is we're promoting it in one of 4 ways, right? One is we're just going to self-promote what we're doing, meaning on our own personal social media channels, people we know, contacts we know, friends of friends of friends. Hey, check out our podcast. It's all business. It's fun. And we joke around. We talk about a lot of topics you might find interesting. Those people may tell people who tell other people, and we get people that join on or view or subscribe in that manner. That's your most common sense, simplistic way to do it is kind of like when we were talking to Frank with owning a restaurant. He said, I just went and told everybody I knew on social media.
Yeah, I just opened a restaurant. He walked around the neighborhood, passed out flyers. He sent emails. He went to his church. He went to his baseball league.
He built a community. He literally built a community.
I will say too, it's been kind of fun in that as I've been running by your side, I've had some individuals ask me like, hey, Brad, if I want to develop my career, or I want to lead a team, or I want to manage a team, I say, you should check out this podcast because we talk about all of those things. And they wind up coming back to me a couple of weeks later and say, I've been watching the podcast. It's been helping me out. So
I love you can specifically say, watch episode 7, watch this episode on real estate investing, or watch this one on marketing. Sorry, man.
No, that community building and the incubation stage, I'm so interested in that because I think I'd be curious to see where we can take that. Because even at one of your shows, right, we had a fan come up and we had a nice 10-minute conversation or so, but that was like, all right, we're starting to build a community. I'm starting to now meet people who've seen it and talk to them and helping them. He was an entrepreneur. That's the good stuff, right?
I gotta say, that's the most interesting part of this to me. Is people now know things about me that no one's ever known. And it throws you when somebody's like, wow, that thing you did on such and such. I mean, like,
Brian pushes me against, who told you?
I'm like, I guess
you did. Episode 12, minute 37.
That poor hamster.
Oh, yeah. I guess I am putting that out there for everybody to share, but it hits you like, yeah, if we're going to be, we say, oh, we're going to be candid, we're going to be open and stuff, but when it comes back around, you're like, wow, complete strangers know stuff that my wife didn't even know,
And Amber, you were mentioning, Amber works at a restaurant. She does some bartending on the side. And she's like, yeah, I was talking to like 8 people at the bar telling them about the podcast. And they were asking a lot of questions about the podcast. And so it just comes up in just everyday conversation. Right? It's like, what do you do? What are you working towards? Oh, I'm working on a podcast. I'm doing production, post-production. Yeah. Oh, really? Tell me about it.
I talk with business people all the time. They come in all the time. So, and I'll overhear their conversation and I'll try to hop in and just be like, hey, this is going on. If you want to check it out and leave your feedback.
Yeah.
I don't know if really is a good... Brad's got like the big speaker on the top of his car, like the Blues Brothers when they were promoting their show.
Ladies' night tonight at the Palace Hotel Ballroom.
Hey, you on the bike?
Blues Brothers, one of the best movies made all time.
From Chicago, the fabulous Blues Brothers, Rhythm and Blues Review for your dancing pleasure. And it's ladies' night tonight at the Palace Hotel Ball.
And what's a good sign is it's coming organically. I was driving my daughter out to LA. She's talking about her and her boyfriend, and he, may have some money and they're thinking about Oklahoma, maybe investing something. And I said, Haley, you need to listen to the real estate episode. I said, what surprised me the most is what Brad said, that he didn't have that much at the time and was still investing. I'm like, listen to it. So it's organically coming up. It's not pitchy. So many people are either starting businesses, managing teams, and customer service that this content is valuable.
I enjoyed watching your trip, by the way, online. That was hilarious.
All the posts.
That was fun.
Post some pictures.
Yeah. We were driving a 3-day drive, Chicago to LA. I thought, you know what? Let's make the most of it and do some stuff.
You saw the biggest, second biggest ball of twine, or was it paper?
No, we saw the paper airplane. It was the largest paper airplane, and I'm like, Haley, we got to pull off. She's like, well, do we really want to stop for that? I'm like, it's the largest paper airplane, and it's right off the highway because there's no. It wasn't paper. It was fiberglass. I'm like, how can they call the largest paper airplane if it's fiberglass?
Did you read the plaque? Maybe it said, the paper one, it got wet and it just, so this is a replica of the largest paper airplane.
I have to go back and see if there's a plaque. Not sure there's a plaque.
So let's get back to the sale. So the subs and views. So just going back, I said there was 4 ways to tackle the subs and views. And the one was, I said, just self-promotion, right? Just you post and you self-promote, you've started something, and I'm telling the world I'm doing it. Much like we talked to Frank DeGrassi at Mamo Nestes about, letting his friends and family know about the restaurant. We just let people know about the podcast. And if your friends tell your friends, you tell your friends, that's always a good thing, because maybe somebody really wants to know about a subject or a topic, or knows a lot of people that want to hear about it. So,
and you get good feedback that way.
Yeah.
They do.
It's funny how it's usually in the form of a question, like, are you guys sure you want to wear those shirts? Are you guys sure you want to? It's like, are you saying, like,
they only say that to you. The thing is, no, but then the second thing would be, okay, and this is where we started now to, and Brian can talk a little bit about this, is where we've been kind of dabbling a little bit in boosting, doing some ad spend in social media. And it's not a lot. In fact, from the social media ad spends I've done in prior companies, and I know Matt's got experience in that like actually got me a little unsettled, because Brian said, hey, I'm going to do some social media ad boosting just so people know the podcast is out there. And I was thinking, from our days, By Your Side, other companies spending hundreds and thousands of dollars in advertising. And Brian's like, no, I'm putting like $15 boosts. I'm putting a $20 ad spend, and it's lasting for weeks. And hundreds of thousands of people are seeing the podcast and getting visibility to it, because it's working its way up in Google, and it's working its way up in YouTube. And so it was something, I think, in the beginning, when we were considering kind of an operating expense budget, that, okay, well, how are we going to advertise and promote this? And Brian right away was, well, let's do some social media ad buys, and then we'll start boosting. And right away I had this unsettled view, because I was like, I don't want to be spending thousands and thousands of dollars on advertising when we don't even know if the content is relevant.
Is it a product?
We don't know. And that goes back to our topic around marketing, and whether or not, hey, don't be spending a ton of money on marketing until you know it's working. And Brian, you bought some ad spends, very inexpensive ad spends, $15, $25. And
yeah. So to be candid, it's really, so far, we've only tested on YouTube. So we haven't really spent on social media yet. We've been talking about how do we test on LinkedIn? How do we test on Facebook? How do we test on Instagram? I mean, Google Ads is even further down the road. Google contacts me like 3 times a week because they got all these ad programs they want you to buy into. It's like, to your point, we don't have the product flushed out yet. So let's stay as close to home as possible, which is YouTube will feature our podcast. Across the thing, you'll see shorts, and you'll see recommended videos, and on their landing page, you'll see us. And, you can buy spots in different countries, and the prices are different, and the audiences are different. So that's been interesting to experiment with. You can test different thumbnails. So we'll put in 3 different thumbnails for a show and see which one gets the best response. And then, we've talked about this in our marketing segment, just being able to see the audience. So the age, where they're watching, people are watching on TV. The age spread is pretty even. I mean, we've got 20-year-olds and 70-year-olds watching the show.
Australia surprised us.
Yeah, that kind of popped out of nowhere.
India, England, Canada. Australia.
It is still, I don't remember if it's still predominantly male. We talked about the Spinal Tap reference, but there's more men watching than women, but not a concern yet. So the plan is to slowly test and expand different social media. I think we need some different media assets to test. We've talked about putting together promotional videos, as opposed to promoting an episode, promote the show itself, promote the channel, promote the brand, drive more awareness that way, because we have a library now. People can go back and binge watch 18 to 20 episodes or something in the middle.
It's like Sons of Anarchy. For those of you that have never seen Sons of Anarchy, watch Sons of Anarchy and binge watch that. Favorite TV show of all time.
Brad watched the whole 7 seasons in 4 nights. He was 4 nights scarred for life.
I couldn't keep my eyes open. But yeah, so as Brian's mentioned, we're dabbling in that, but not a large spend. So it's an operating expense. We are incurring with some labor expense for Amber out of the gate and some marketing.
I haven't been hit with the rent yet from the owner of Studio G.
Yeah, I
but
mean,
I'm sure
we
that's gonna be a
obviously,
big
and
one.
that's a good point. But we talked about the players, the four of us, but we are very fortunate that we have a property that is serving as a makeshift studio and is not vacated. Unless of course Amber's staying here, but outside that it's not vacated, or it's vacated. For the majority of the year, we use it as a property, a second home to come and visit. But we've turned this bar into a makeshift studio, and it makes it very easy to record. And our reoccurring expenses for rent are at the low price of $0 right now.
But it's interesting because I thought about it.
Although I don't think the IRS will know that. No.
I'm like one of Brad's.
Sorry, we're a hobby.
We are a hobby.
A bar at one of Brad's other properties serves as the studio for our band, otherwise civilized.
That's funny.
So I bounce back and forth between Brad's studio properties.
Yeah, exactly.
But again, it was a choice, and I think an important one, that with the technology out there and all the new software for podcasting, we could have easily done the 3 boxes and just say, let's just stay from home. We chose to be in person. We each have different drives, some longer than others.
Yeah. I mean, it is unfortunate you live in Iowa now.
Work that in.
Iowa and Wisconsin is going to be long.
way to work that. When's Crow going to mention how long his drive is?
What is it? Brian's got about a 20-minute ride into the office. Let's call it the office, the studio.
But there is a speed trap here in between my house and the
there
studio.
is.
That I've already been nailed
Indian
once.
Hills Road. Yeah. So Brian, what do you have? About 25
minutes. Yeah.
And Amber, how long do you have?
30.
30 minutes. Okay. And Matt Croak?
About an hour 40.
Yikes. But he has actually an access to a bedroom here and can stay
I
whenever
do.
he'd
And luckily
like.
I'm a fan of podcasts, so I listen to my
my
true crime.
And then I have about a
podcast.
50-minute ride.
You ever heard
but-
this podcast, Matt? You ever listen?
I know. What's it about? I'm interested in
You
investing
should
in
try
real
on your way
estate.
home today. Maybe listen.
So I mean, I think getting started, what I'd like to do is, I think the other topics of, I said there's 4 ways that we will drive views and subs. We've talked two. One is to post and self-promote. 2 is to do the social media spending.
Do you want to now?
I want to stop.
Let's tease. We got to tease here.
Yeah, because we have 2 more to go, and those 2 we're just starting to get involved, and we'll talk about those on our next episode.
But I want to talk about the subscriptions. We talked about subs, getting subscriptions. If you enjoy the podcast, if you want to support the podcast, these subscriptions, what we're learning to subscribe to the podcast, it's free, is more important than I think we even realized. It's more important than views. So please, all you have to do, it's free. Hit that subscribe button. And if you're listening audio only, Spotify, Apple, iTunes, whatever, just you follow the show. So those are very impactful and help us continue this content. So a very easy way to support the show. And obviously we love answering questions. So if you want to engage in other ways through leaving messages on the YouTube page, texting, emailing us, you can see all that information on the show notes.
Yeah, no, I think it's great. And it's so funny because I think we've said it about 3 or 4 times that maybe because we're getting older, is that we hear the word subscription and we think we're paying for something.
Yeah.
And you are not paying for anything. Subscriber means you are being notified when there is a new episode out, which a new episode comes out every Friday at 4 p.m. And so we'll tune in again for part 2 of the podcast, The Evolution. And we can go into it from there. Maybe we'll do a full 10-minute interview with Amber during that session. That's what she says.
And the reviews, right? We're gonna.
Oh, we do all the quarterly
We
reviews.
should do our quarterly reviews.
Yeah, exactly. So
You're out of beer. I saw that. So just Brad.
that
and I
That
will
is a
say-
good timing.
Yeah, cheers.
I'll
Okay.
pretend to.
All right. Well, cheers.
I don't think it's good luck.
Is it not? Is that true?
I
Wait, hold
don't
on. Don't
know.
stop recording. Is it? It's bad luck to cheers an empty bottle.
I've heard several people say don't cheers with a glass of water. I got to imagine cheers with an empty bottle is even worse.
And
But
we're
but by the way,
I'll look it up.
I have to say this before we end. This is an important part of the episode where we say things like when we are pitching potential advertisers. I want to say to our good friends at Nuclearis Brewing, we appreciate Spotted Cow. Thank you.
You've been listening to the CEO Bros After Hours podcast. To help us spread the word, please share this podcast, subscribe, and hit that like button. Looking for the video version of our podcast? Simply use the Spotify video feature or visit our YouTube channel at youtube.com/@CEO Bros. We're always looking to connect with our audience, so please send us your questions, comments, or topic ideas by email to suggestions@ceobros.com or connect with us through Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, or X. Simply search CEO Bros. That's CEO BROS. Thanks for listening. Until next time.